Hello, gamers. I want to talk about a solo-only game called Final Girl from Van Ryder Games today. This is a game where you play as the final girl in a legally distinct Hollywood horror movie with a lot of like the 80s and 90s horror movie tropes in it. It's right up my alley. I love both of those things, solo games and those 80s and 90s horror movies that were kind of laughable in a lot of ways, but they just have a certain charm to them. They always sat right with me. This game does not come in one giant box that you can buy for, $40 or $60 or whatever. It's kind of a little different. It's two boxes minimum required to play. You need to buy a core box and then one of the feature film boxes. So the core box, let me see here. Here's a picture from Board Game Geek of what the cover of the core box looks like. And you can see, kind of nondescript, right? Not much to it. It's grays and it says Final Girl core box, and that's about it. And what comes in that box is all the things that you have to have for every single scenario, right? So things like the horror track, the meeples that are the victims or special meeples, the dice that you're going to use in the game, the hand of cards that you're going to be playing all your actions from, and the little wooden components like hit point trackers and the time tracker, kind of just the basic stuff that you're going to need in every scenario, no matter what it is. Life tokens. These are the life tokens here for your final hit point and the killer's final hit point. And then you need one of the feature film boxes, which are also $19.99. So they're $20 for the core box, $20 US for each feature film box. And I think there's 10 now, right? So there was season 1 where it was 5, and then season 2, which I do not believe has fulfilled from Kickstarter yet, hasn't arrived yet, but at retail, I believe they're $20 or less. You can also get minis, a box of minis. The problem I have here is you can't see the minis very well, right? So I did buy them mainly because I've got this weird, sick addiction to minis. Whether I paint them or use them or not, I just think they're cool. But these are incredibly small, so keep in mind that when you're talking about minis, these are some tiny, tiny, tiny minis. Let me put one of these up against one of these giant dice here. Let's see here. All right, so they're kind of small, but they're detailed enough. They have them for the killers and all the final girls. It's pretty cool. It's a small box. I think I only paid $20 for it online, so it was kind of neat, but it's not going to work out as well as I would have hoped for something like this. So, you might like it, and you can paint them, of course, which I think would be really super cool. I think it'd be great to have like the killers. Otherwise, you have the Final Girl pink meeple and the killer little red meeple here. And there's 2 red meeples. You're going to find one over here too to keep track of stuff over here on the horror track. So they're the same little red meeple. It doesn't really matter. What else do we have here? You can, like the big thing about this, so right here, what you're seeing in front of you is that each feature film is different. Each one comes with 2 final girls, right? 2 final girls in each feature film box, a location, in this case, Camp Happy Trails, and a killer, which in this case you can see out here is Hans. And what's amazing is these boxes, these are the covers of the box, right? This is magnetic and it clips onto the box on one side, and then you flip the box over and this is magnetic as well and it clips onto the box on the other side. It's pretty neat. And in those boxes, you get 2 final girls, a killer, a location, and then a whole slew of setup stuff, right? You get setup cards, you get a whole bunch of items, you get the a mix of terror cards and the event cards. So the event cards, you can see, like in this case here, they all have the little campground symbol on it, right? The tent. And so that's how you know that these belong to Camp Happy Trails. The terror cards are actually a mix. They are some specific to Camp Happy Trails and some specific to Hans, which is amazing because that means you can mix and match the feature films. So let's take a look here. Here's a different box. This is Maple Lane with Dr. Fright on it right here, right? So we have Dr. Fright, totally, again, legally distinct from Freddy Krueger, and Maple Lane is absolutely not Elm Street. But see, you open this up, and this is Maple Lane here, and then you flip it over, and over here you have all the Dr. Fright stuff. And of course, Dr. Fright has their own rules. They have a whole different set of cards that they use for the terror. It's amazing, a different track, how they level up and everything. And you can put Dr. Fright in Camp Happy Trails. And obviously, you've probably figured it out by now. Camp Happy Trails is very much the Jason Voorhees scenario, the Camp Crystal Lake, right? And Hans is very much Jason here. He's a very slow-moving killer. He does a whole lot of standing around and staring at the kids. This is like summer camp, and Hans is kind of stereotypical. If you look at the Kickstarters, you can see it's great. They have like a Xenomorph, and they have like a The Thing one. They're all pretty much like, what you're getting at. It's really neat, especially for horror fans. I think it's really cool. There's more item cards here. I've got some off the screen here, but all of these item cards, there's 12 up here, plus all these. You don't use them in every game. Each individual Final Girl has their own special cards, which are in the box, which it does come in like a little envelope that says, don't open until you've at least, won one scenario with this Final Girl, and then you can open the thing and find out what it is. It's pretty neat. Just kind of a fun little thing to do. I like it a lot. It's just unlocking stuff. A lot of people don't like that like legacy game feel of stuff, but I don't know. Unlocking stuff feels pretty good. So you don't destroy anything in this. Don't get me wrong. This is just like you get to, here's an extra card for this person because you beat them. There's like an achievement system if you want. There's a whole like checklist for each place and killer that you can kind of keep track of. Any special kills or any amazing feats that you've done. I'm sure there's something like rescue all the victims or whatever in the map and everything. I'm sure there's stuff like that. Kill the killer 5 times. Kill the killer in 3 different spaces. It goes on and on and on. What else is here? The killer has a board in each box, right? Each one has their own box. This tells you how powerful they are. Let me bring this a little bit closer. There we go. So this is the bloodlust tracker. This tells you how strong the killer is. As they kill victims, this moves up. This is the boot. This means they move that many spaces every time you see the boot icon. And this is how much damage they do. And as this little bloodlust meter progresses up here, as they kill the victims, the yellow meeples here, they raise the horror level. They unlock powers. These cards are shuffled up. There's 4 of these and 3 of these, I think. The dark powers give them additional powers when they cross a threshold here, and then the finale happens when you're playing and run out of terror cards. So then they become like end of movie type like super killer stuff, right? It's really cool. This all has like that horror movie crescendo into like the final scene between the final girl who's still alive. You think she's dead. She flips over a life token. And well, of course, I can never pull one when I'm talking about the final girl there, right? You come back with some more hit points unexpectedly all of a sudden to kill the killer just before, you die or whatever the case may be. It's a lot of fun. It plays unbelievably different every single time I've played it. I think I've played just this. I haven't dug into the other boxes, but I've played this like probably 5 times now. I have won one time, I promise you. It's not easy. You have a bunch of different setup scenarios here. So on the back side of the cards here, you have, what does it say? Meditation hour. And it shows you where to start with the final girl, where the killer starts out here in the lake. Totally not like Jason at all, right? And here's the bonfire. So if you look at the bonfire, you'll see on the map that the fire pit is down in that little corner, and it looks like all the kids are hanging out around the bonfire. Okay, so we also have like the dock, the lake, utility shed, the cliff. You'll notice the cliff goes up to Makeout Point, and there's no way down from Makeout Point except for going down the cliff. There's the cabins, and some of those zones are orange. Those are the searchable zones listed up here that have items. There's some green zones like this place here, here, and here where you can get the victims to escape. And as you escape the victims, if you look at your Final Girl card, you'll notice that they have little spots that you can put the victims that you've rescued on to gain that, instant ability or power, that quick bonus you get. So maybe you can heal or gain 2 more time or lower the horror level. Once you fill that up, you flip your card over, and now you have your Final Girl's ultimate ability. It's really cool, right? You can kind of power up. So there's incentive to rescue the victims and not just go straight for killing the killer. It's pretty neat. The way you play is with these starting cards here, right? So you play a card. Once you get the setup done and everything, 10 terror cards, you flip over an event card, and the event cards are messed up. They will do things like break the rules of the game. So just as an example, one of the rules is your Final Girl can only have 2 victims follow her at a time, right? So an event card might say you can have only 1 follow you at a time, or possibly, and I don't know, potentially, as many victims as you want, something like that. They're not all bad, but they're certainly not all great either. And the way you do your turn is you have a handful of cards, and you start with all the 0 cost cards, the 0 time cost cards. There's 6 of them. So you have 2 cards that are for walking. You have focus cards, which will lower the horror level. You have a short rest to heal some hit points. And then you have a weak attack because, some attack is better than no attack. And basically what happens is you say you want to play a card. You play a card, and I'm going to walk, and I have to roll some of these dice now. Now, these dice hate you. I will tell you right now that these are some of the meanest dice I've ever seen. So 1 and 2 are fails. 3 and 4 are you can discard 2 cards to count as a success, and 5 and 6 are just successes. And you only get to roll as many dice as the horror track allows. So the horror track is this guy over here. You will reset to 6 times every time when you're shopping for cards, or before once you're done buying cards, rather. And you can see here that if the horror level's on 4, which is what Hans says to start the game with, 4. So we start here. There's 2 dice there. That means I only get to roll 2 dice. And remember what our card said: 2 successes allows me to walk 2 spaces, and it costs us 1 time to do so. So if we roll something like this, okay, great. So we can do a single success, move up to 1 space, but it still costs us 1 time. So we would lower our time here, and then let's say that's the end of our turn. So now I've spent this walk card. I cannot buy it back. I can only shop with my time from these cards here, and all of these cost more than 1 time. These cost 1 to 6. So then you buy up some cards by spending your time, you reset your time, and now it's the killer phase. I'm going to pull up the turns here, the turn summary, just so you can kind of see how this works, right, while I'm explaining it, right? So you have the action phase, you're playing your cards. The planning phase, where you're purchasing cards. We reset our time back to 6, and then we put the cards back here in the market to buy. Then next round. Then the killer phase happens. Now, resolve the killer action and draw a terror card. The killer action is going to be up on whatever this card says up here next to the K. That says, you can see here, target a victim or final girl, and then attack. Now, if we look at the icon reference there, you can kind of see a little bit better of what those icons are. Sometimes it's target just the nearest victim only. Sometimes it's target the final girl herself. There's other things here: gain time, lose time, increase, decrease horror. The one I hate the most, action phase immediately ends, up in the top right there. You can see there's exit spaces, and on the board here, it's probably hard to see in the video, you can see that there's search spaces with the little wrench and the little door for exit spaces. So that tells you how the killer runs around and what they do. So you can see Hans here is very much, Jason-y, right? Stands still and attacks, does not move. There's no move on this card. There's no boot icon. Okay, but then you draw a terror card, and these terror cards are things like move, maybe it's 1 boot or maybe 2 boots. And if it's 2 boots and you're way up here, boot says 2. So you would move 4 spaces as the killer towards, whatever the target is, the card will often say. The card might also say just there's a lightning storm and you take a point of damage, or one of these places explodes and you can lose all the items in the shed and anybody in there died, or whatever the case may be. These terror cards can be terrifying. Okay, then the turns phase goes to panic phase. Now the panic phase is if a victim was killed in any way at all by the killer, by an accident, anything, this turn, and there are still victims in the area with the killer, they panic. And the way they panic is you roll a die, and it tells you which way to go. So in this case, a 6. So if we look here, let me get the final girl out of the way, these extra meeples out of the way. So if the killer and these 2 were in this one space, and we rolled a 6, you can see there's a 6 right there. So then this victim would run down. We roll again, we roll a 1. That's more like it, those dice. You see 1 to 4 is up here, so this victim would run away in that direction. And this makes it very hard when you're trying to chase these people down, to catch up with them, to get them to escape. It's not easy to track these people down. And, you're trying to get, again, here to a green space, there to a green space, or there to a green space to escape. It is so much fun, but terrifying and difficult. Now, we also have, after that, the upkeep phase here. This is the reveal the finale card if there are no terror cards left, and then rearrange your items. So you have a backpack down here where you just line up your items, and over here you can carry items that have little hand icons on them, and you have 2 hands, obviously. So maybe you have like a 1 2-handed axe, or maybe a garbage can lid and a knife, right? So just to see off screen here are some of the item cards. These have all been shuffled and ready to go here, but like here's an aluminum bat, for example, right? So you can see that's a 2-handed weapon, range 0, but does 1 additional point of damage plus whatever it says on there. There's some pepper spray, right? That can be held in your hand. That is a single-handed item. Then there are really neat things like the bear trap here, right? This is an item that puts a token on the board. And in this case, if the killer steps on it, they take 2 damage, it looks like. I'm not going to sit and read the card. You get the idea. There's all kinds of cool items in this, and they are they are per location. You'll see on the corner of them, they have that little icon for Camp Happy Trails. So in your box on Maple Street, what's it called? Maple Lane? Maple Lane, it's going to have a little maple leaf on there, and it's going to be, thematic to Maple Lane. It's not going to be like a bear trap out in the woods. So they're all different. It's pretty neat. I'm not sure what else we haven't covered here. The horror track goes up and down. If it goes up too high, you only roll 1 die. If you can push the horror level down to 1, you actually get to roll 3 dice, which of course increases your odds, which is fantastic. Some of these cards also like improvise here. Until this action phase ends, all 3s and 4s count as successes. That's fantastic if you can make that happen. It's very hard. You have a hand limit of 10 cards and you start the game with 6. You can only buy them back every other turn. So it's a hand management game, really. And then, about mitigating a lot of this luck from these dice that absolutely hate you. It is crazy. So other than that, that's basically the idea how the game plays. You then would just start over and go again. And the last thing I think that we didn't really cover that is worth talking about are these tokens here, right? So your last hit point is here. So if I am, let's say I'm Lori and I start the game with 5 hit points, right? She has a 5 right there. So you only have 4 tokens out here. You shuffle up these 9 things at the start of the game and put them on the killer gets their last hit point as one, and the final girl gets her last hit point as one of those. And if your hit points look like this, that's roll an extra die icon is what that is. So your horror rolls get slightly easier when you're both down to 1 hit point. And yes, they stack. So if you're both down to your last hit point, you get to roll 2 extra dice, which is awesome. But then, let's say this is my last hit point and the killer hits me for 9 points of damage. I flip this, and in this case, I die, it's game over. In this case, I flip this and I die and it's game over. And then some of them, very few here. Oh my word. Here, this one says you come back to life with 2 hit points. So then you would pull out one of these white ones to say that you've already done it and add yourself a hit point, and you're back in action. You didn't die, no matter how hard that hit you the first time, which is very exciting, very, horror movie, end of horror movie-ish, where, like I said, you come back, from certain death and manage to and manage to kill the killer, or they can kill you. They also, have the same thing. So the whole thing is really fun. And each place also has its own little story, and as does each killer. So real quick before we wrap this up here, I think I have... I wanted to show you this. I actually mentioned it before. So you can see under special rules, there are no special rules for Camp Happy Trails or Hans. These are very much the beginning, I don't want to say like generic, but it's very like standard rules. This just, the rule book that comes in the core box, you don't modify that in any way, but the other feature films do. For instance, the Poltergeist has no hit points, and you need to escape a certain person out of there. They're all different. It's fantastic. This is some book. This is a PDF you can get from their website. I don't know if I have a print copy of this or not. I really don't. I have 6 boxes or something of this laying around here. So it could be in a box, but for these purposes, it's way easier to show on the screen like this. And then there's the achievement lists are also in that PDF you can download just to take a look there. So let's read the Camp Happy Trails story here. So this says, welcome to Camp Happy Trail. Oh, I cut the additional item art person's name off, I think. I'm sorry. Welcome to Camp Happy Trails, home to teenage love, unforgettable friendships, and idyllic summer memories. Go fishing on the lake, get in some archery practice at the range, listen to ghost stories around the fire pit, or sneak off to make out point. Life is always an adventure at Camp Happy Trails. Wait a second, is that screaming I hear in the distance? Oh, fiddlesticks, those spooky stories must be getting to me. I'm sure it's just screams of joy from the other campers. Hot dogs, summers at Camp Happy Trails really are to die for. That's awesome. So every place has its own little thing like that. And I'm going to try to remember to do some intro video for each one to talk about the different setups. So you won't hear about the game mechanics, but you will hear just about the setup on the other videos. And then, what did I do with it? I lost the page. There it is. This is Hans the Butcher. They say he wears a worn butcher's smock, stained dark with blood. His sledgehammer, which he drags behind him, supposedly weighs over 50 pounds and could crush an elephant's skull. He's over 7 feet tall, and his eyes glow a bright scarlet. But the worst part is the iron mask he wears, fashioned to look like a pig, and the wet, crunching sounds that can be heard beneath it. Yeah, that's gnarly. So, so that's Hans. This is Camp Happy Trails. I think this game is an absolute blast, but you do have to, you have to get over the randomness of it, because every bit of it is random. You don't know what these item cards are. So the way it really works, when you start out, you flip over the setup card, right? So you're going to set your people out in this place. You're going to put the victims in the other numbers, the killer where the K is, and then the final girl where the picture of the final girl is, right? That's our setup. That is a skinny dipping. Then every place starts with one item. Oh, look at that. There's an axe. So here's an axe, an old revolver, and the motorboat keys. Okay, so there's a boat in this situation here. So you don't know what the other items at that place are, but you do start the game with those revealed, but just the top ones, just the top ones. And the search card here that you can play, this card down here, may or may not let you put that item back and draw another card, or draw 2 off the top, or put one at the bottom of the stack, stuff like that. There's other items that let you flip over an unknown card too, but this kind of keeps the mystery alive, right? It gives you a place to start, and there's only 4 cards there total in the game. So remember I told you, I pointed out earlier, there's a whole lot of item cards, so there could be some really good stuff in here. And then you start with 1 event card. So you flip the event card over, and it'll say something completely messed up, like Death Wish. During the upkeep phase, move the victim closest to the killer 1 space towards it. Do not count victims currently in the same space as the killer. So one of these person is just genuinely curious, and that's how our game starts. And some of these terror cards, remember, there's only 10, and I think there's probably 20 of them that you don't use. You shuffle, you mix in killer and location terror cards, shuffle, draw 10, that's your game. Some of these do things like give them extra powers even. There's slots up here for 2 extra powers, and sometimes that's extra hit points for them, extra movement, extra damage, what have you. And sometimes it's draw another event card. And it gets, I mean, they're not all bad. Sometimes, you know, some of the event cards are not horrible. But with my luck, they're usually pretty bad. But in any case, I'm excited to get another game of this started here. So let's get to that here in just a minute and see how well we do.